for refusing to link their mobile lines with their national identification numbers. 42 million Nigerian subscribers may be barred from making calls, sending texts, or connecting to the internet from Thursday, and that's today. Now, this follows a public announcement issued in 2023 by the Nigerian Communications Commission, directing subscribers, especially those with inactive lines, to ensure they link their subscriber identity module with their NIN numbers. Included in the 42 million are SIM cards that have not been used in over 1 year. The NCC says this move will help in tackling insecurity and kidnapping across the country. It's also to enable law enforcement agencies to track fraudulent cash transfers, terrorism and other illicit activities, as well as better regulate the telecom sector.
Well, let's cross live to our Lagos studio and speak to Benga Adebayo, who's the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria. Good to see you, and thanks for your time as always. Well, it looks as if we're going back to how it all started, and one would have thought that this is not a new policy. And how did we get to 40 million plus when there's been a policy in place for years?
Thank you for having me. These subscribers are those who have refused to provide NIN numbers to their telecom network operators. You recall that an announcement was made in 2023 asking people to go and link up their SIM cards, otherwise they will be disconnected. We've been on this since then. Even though this was meant to have happened since 2022, the NCC graciously granted an extension of time, and at that time, those subscribers are prevented from receiving calls, but they were able to make other form of transmission, communications other than voice calls. So as we stand today, these are subscribers who have refused to provide any form of NIN to their operators.
Now, Mr. Adebayo, is it possible that part of the reasons why you have this high number of subscribers not linked to their NIN may be a lack of adequate public enlightenment? And secondly, a federal high court in Lagos actually barred telcos from carrying out these, barring of lines. And yet telcos have gone ahead to do so.
We have had this information in the public since 2022. And we have told the public that unless you link your NIN with your SIM card, at some point you will not be able to make any form of communication services whatsoever. So the issue of not providing enough information, I don't think is the case in this instance. I think it's just this attitude of not caring to do what we have to do as a people. And we've been on this journey for long. It's high time that we have reliable and credible national database. What we aim to do as operators, alongside with the National Identification Commission, as directed by our regulator, is to ensure that we all have our subscribers comply with this. But people have just refused to do that for want of a better reason. I think just saying that they do not care, actually. And this is just the first tier of subscribers that will be affected. We have the second tier, we have the third tier. On the issue of a court case that you have mentioned, I won't be able to make any comment on that because that will be sub judice. But the fact remains that we have regulatory instructions to carry this, and this has been done. Until now, we have not received any copy of the said court judgment, as the case may be. So when we get to that bridge, we will cross it. But so far, we are complying with regulatory directive. This is now ongoing. The first set of people that have been disconnected are those who have not provided any form of NIN to their operators. The next set that will be disconnected by the 30th of March will be those who have provided NIN, but their NINs have not been very viable, or there have been some form of concern by way of information provided in the data to the NIN agency. And the third will be by 15th of April, when those who have less than 5 MSISDN numbers attached to their NIN will be disconnected. So the appeal to the public is just to comply with this directive. There is no midway around it at all. It's a government policy. I mean, as law-abiding citizens, we have to follow the law of the land. So the appeal is to the public to just ensure that we all comply with this directive.
Well, Mr. Adebayo, I think let's push this back a little and be honest here. It doesn't look like this is about the Nigerian, but about the telcos and the regulator, because you and I know that some years back you can't get a SIM card without linking this. So how is it that we're able to pile up about 40 million in the space of how many years, and we're also dealing with security challenges that did not even push us as a nation to look deeply and say, wait a minute, we have so many of these lines that are not connected and can't be traced when push comes to shove?
I think we should separate the issues. The issue of not considering the interest of the subscribers is not what we are dealing with. It's a case of people not doing what they have to do in spite of adequate information provided in the public space. And we're saying that these 40 million plus subscribers are those who have refused to provide NIN numbers to their operators. They're not like you and I who have gone to comply and have registered and have everything synchronized and all working together. These are people that for some reasons, they have just refused to provide their NIN number to the service providers. And what has happened in the last 12 months, thereabout, is that these lines are being on receive only. A number of them are working in data devices, so you may not necessarily have to originate calls with them, but there are lines that are active on the network that are providing data services. Some are doing receive only. Some are used on other mobile devices that are not necessarily force-making devices. So it's not a question of people not being cared about or catered for, but it's just that people have just refused to comply with what they have to comply with. So it is what it is. I'm sorry, it is what it is.
Maybe you get in. Let me put it this way. What I'm saying is that we have people who have not complied, right? But the thing here is that these people have their lines still active before now. So what I'm saying is that there are so many Nigerians, the everyday Nigerian can't have their lines working when they haven't provided these. So who are these 40 million Nigerians without providing these very vital data still had their lines working?
Well, these are people who know who they are. Again, as I said, some of these SIM cards are working in mobile devices. Some are individuals who just refuse to do what they have to do. Some are people using those services for information that are inexplainable. And some of the people are just people who do not want to be traceable. So they have people who are doing it for their own reasons, not for the public good like you and I will do, to ensure that we are complying with the laws of the land. These are people who only know what they are doing with those SIM cards.
Well, Mr. Adebayo, Nigerians woke up Wednesday, that's yesterday, to lines that were just not going through. They couldn't receive any calls, they couldn't make any calls. Is there a link between carrying out this directive and what happened yesterday? And one can only imagine how much this must have cost Nigerians in terms of financials. Any plan to compensate Nigerians in some way or the other?
These are two clearly separate issues, and I must explain them very carefully. Issue of NIN and SIM card not linked together and leading to disconnection of services is different from the disruption of service that we had yesterday. And as I said earlier, the people whose services have not been disconnected are those who have refused to provide NIN numbers to their service providers. These are not people who have provided NIN. These are not people who have provided NIN and they are not synchronized or what. They are people who have just not provided any form of NIN whatsoever to their service providers. Those are people that are now being disconnected. Those are the numbers that form about the 40 million plus that we're talking about. Yesterday, what happened was issue of willful damage to communications infrastructures. And this happened at different parts of the country simultaneously, one at 9 o'clock in the morning, one at about 11:45 in the morning, and another one at about 1:30 in the afternoon. And this impacted on the national network. It's due to activities of construction companies working for government. We have made cases to the right ministry. We have informed the right authorities on what has happened. And what we saw yesterday is this issue of vulnerability of communication infrastructure to willful and unwillful damage by public actors. So while we regret what has happened yesterday, what led to the disruption of services is nothing traceable to issue of SIM card or NIN registration whatsoever. It has to do with disruption of services arising from willful damage to communication infrastructure by some of those who are doing work for government. We also have a case of vandalization in one of the cases, and that's a case of the local setting the telecom duct on fire, which also led to outage in some part of the country. So all this added together is what led to what we had yesterday, for which we highly regret inconveniences to the public.
Well,
the other leg, she was asking about compensation.
Well, they are not actions due to they are not activity impact due to activity of telecom subscribers. So there are things that are beyond our control. We're saying that these are more or less force majeure situations that are just not within the control of telecom operators. If you have people working for government and they damage public infrastructure, public utilities like telecom services, what can we do? We can only take that to the doorstep of government. If you have locals who have gone to set fire on telecom infrastructure, what can we do? That's a force majeure situation. So if there is anyone actually to compensate the public for this, we have to take it to the doorstep of government. And this again goes to underscore the need to ring-fence telecom infrastructure from variable damages.
Well, there are a lot of things that perhaps you may not want to address now here, but again, clearly here, how can we ultimately sensitize the subscriber? How can they know if their lines are actually linked or not? Because some still get the same message when they have done the needful.
Well, the subscribers that have been disconnected now are those who have not provided any NIN number to the telecom operators. Those who may be receiving messages of going to link their NIN with their SIM card, there may be people who have problems with the data they provided for the telecom operators. Now, you know, we have the primary data source, which is the NIN record. Then we have the functional data source, which is that of the SIM record. Now, what we are mandated to do is to collect these two information and harmonize them together, send them back to NIN for verification and confirm that they are coming back clear and okay. We are seeing cases where information provided by individuals, either at the point of providing the primary data, which is the one for their NIN, it's not the same as they are provided for the operators when they do their SIM registration. So we're having some form of data mismatch, and those individuals may be required to go back to NIMC, either to go and re-register or to go and what we call harmonize their records. So they need to tell us if, for example, my name is Benga Adebayo. At the point when I am doing my SIM registration, I reported my name as Adebayo Benga. The primary source is Benga Adebayo. So at the point when the operator tries to harmonize it, they will have to come to a point where am I known as Benga Adebayo or Adebayo Benga? In that instance, I need to provide an all clear to the operator to say, okay, I want to be known as Adebayo Benga and not Benga Adebayo. With that all clear to the operators, they will go and then harmonize the data and say, okay, he now wishes to be known as Adebayo Benga in his functional record, not as Benga Adebayo in his primary record with NIMC. We also have cases where people's date of birth, people's modern maiden name is different from what they provide at those two sources. When you have this data mismatch, there will be a need for you to go and reintegrate and harmonize this data together, because the primary data source is actually the NIMC record. This is what we rely upon to verify the data provided for the operator. Where you have this disparity in records, there will be a need for individuals to go and have that harmonized. And those are people that are getting information as to go back to NIMC or go back to your NIN record or go back to your operator to go and harmonize the data. And that's what we follow in the second phase. So, but those who have now been disconnected are those who have not provided NIN whatsoever, NIN at all, to the service providers. So the people who are getting information in spite of providing NIN are those whose record are not able, we are not able to harmonize the records. And they need to do some form of revisit to the verification center, to the identification center, to either to have the data recaptured or to have the harmonization done there.
It looks clumsy, but the primary identification must be the number, the NIN. So it's more or less like your social security. So you look at the number, whether the name or not, the number should cohere. So if the numbers don't cohere, how come? Well, anyway, I think it's a whole long story, and we do hope that the technicalities will be looked into by the experts. I would like to thank you for your time, Benga Adebayo.